Thank you for watching our webinar on the evolution of Microsoft Project Portfolio Management, what modern PMOs are doing differently using OnePlan, hosted by Jim Patterson. For more on this topic, explore our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn for continued expert insights.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for carving out a piece of your valuable time today out of your busy day to join us. I'm happy to present this topic, which, we've been at a bunch of events this season and have a lot of conversations with people, with customers and prospective customers. And really the project portfolio management overall is evolving. Definitely Microsoft's plan for project and portfolio management is evolving, and just the landscape in the marketplace and what's expected of PMOs is evolving as well. And we have to adapt and take advantage of the opportunities that are there, mitigate any threats that are there or changes that are required. We're going to talk today about what some of those things are, from just the approaches and the things that PMOs do, as well as different concepts in portfolio management that are being embraced by organizations across the board. So with that, let me just start with the case for evolving traditional PMOs. And I would say this: over the last recent decades, big advances have come across in project and portfolio management, what PMOs are doing in general. Really it was about to maintain or even establish some standards and consistency of the way people do things and manage projects and initiatives across the organization. And many benefits were achieved over there. Consistency, help define clearer what it is that we're going to do, make our planning and our tracking more realistic and complete, optimizing our resources, ultimately improving the quality of what we deliver, and then visibility more traditionally ongoing throughout it all, so that we can see where we're at and leadership can make decisions based on that data. And that's all good, but we need more. And there's many tools out there today that provide some measure of at least part of these things. All the way down to individual project and task management, there's a lot of lightweight collaborative task management, project management tools that are out there. But more is needed by our PMOs and our just project portfolio management disciplines. Now, some of the limitations of the traditional stuff that we've done before is that we had to get a handle on things like standards and consistency and compliance, but that can't be the end game. If it really is what we're doing to do that, to enable strict adherence to those processes which we put in, it can limit the flexibility that's needed in today's modern age. That means lack of agility, right? And if we don't provide a lack of rigidity in what we're doing, and it may hinder our ability to respond, to do quick adaptation to things that are technological changes, market changes, competitive changes, and have us not be able to respond quickly to the needs and priorities of the organization. And many organizations today really are not, and especially at the PMO level, aligning effectively projects with overall business strategy. And that may not be just because they don't want to, maybe it's because they don't have the visibility or the communication that they need to do that. And this can reduce portfolio effectiveness. Now, the impact of all this is that we can end up with misaligned investment. It means we could be working on the wrong things. We could work on duplicate things that are trying to do the same thing. We may be doing things that don't contribute at all to our strategic goals as an organization. This is essentially a waste of resources, and they're scarce and they're valuable resources. If we don't do this well, poor portfolio decisions can reduce our competitiveness. And the idea is our effectiveness in the marketplace, maintaining any leadership that we have or advantages that we have, could dwindle. And then decrease in stakeholder confidence. If we don't deliver well, if we don't deliver the right things, if we deliver inefficiently because of the poor portfolio decisions we've made, our stakeholders lose confidence, whether they be internal or internal stakeholders or customers that we have. And once again, that reduced organizational agility is something that we can't afford in this day and age of business and digital and technological transformation. So what we really have to do is really transform, or I would just say enhance what we do. It's not good enough to just deliver and deliver on time and deliver on budget. We have to add value, and our PMOs need to become more strategic value offices. And many offices are doing that. And the goal here is to deliver measurable value that aligns with strategic objectives of our organization and the business goals and what those priorities are. And if we're not doing things that align with those, we have to really seriously question why we're doing them in the first place. The other piece is, many of us come from a day when, the annual operating plan was the be all and end all. Well, that's almost a static artifact these days to get started with. Even quarterly prioritization and reprioritization, reassessment of our portfolios oftentimes isn't enough. We maybe have to do things that are more event-driven so that we can kick those things off, and that reprioritization and that reassessment when certain events occur that trigger those things for us as an organization. And the other piece is integrated stakeholder engagement. Leadership may have a strategic plan. Different parts of the organization may have their strategies that they have to do to meet their objectives, but they need to be aligned and they need to be communicated up and down the chain so that we're all rowing in the same direction. And so having them integrated into the process, and the PMO or the strategic PMO or the strategic value delivery PMO needs to enable that, needs to foster that communication to make sure that the decisions are made at the PMO level, and what the PMO ends up managing is consistent with the needs of all those constituencies. So business strategy enablement is key. Now, today's PMOs are facing challenges on multiple fronts. As I meant, it's fast paced, and the pace of change is getting even more rapid. And in this digital age, business leaders, there's been a number of studies done by the leading analysts out there. And the top ones that come up over and over again is the challenge is the ability to orchestrate enterprise change. Transformation touches all parts of the organization, and these are big efforts. And organizations are struggling to possibly orchestrate that in a coordinated and effective fashion across the board, and then prioritizing and executing on these cross-functional types of investments that go across multiple, if not all, parts of the organization is a challenge that was identified as well. And as I mentioned, the ability to respond and change quickly over time, the speed to deliver value is a challenge for many organizations out there. So these were the top three consistently in the surveys that were done. So how are leaders responding to these top challenges? Well, one of the ways they're doing this is moving from more departmental or domain-based PMOs to more enterprise PMOs. A recent survey that was done was basically saying that 49% of organizations of those surveyed have an ePMO function, and many also have a desire to put one into place because it does have that broader purview for these larger transformational efforts in parts of organizations. And also that type of span of responsibility makes it more conducive for them to be able to be agents of change and more value delivery across all of that, and a good conduit between senior leadership and the people that execute. Now, why the evolution? Some of this might be redundant, but there's a continuous flux of threats and opportunities that come that we have to adjust and respond to. Significant business implications. And generally, these types of things require a significant amount of effort and cost, and we have to really make good decisions because we're going to basically make big bets on these things. And the effective orchestration and governance at scale across all of this is paramount if we're going to deliver this well and in a way that actually makes sense and actually is effective. So the better strategic alignment better enables us to execute and deliver value at the end of the day, which is what's important. Delivering something is not the be all and end all. It's delivering something that helps move the ball forward with strategy and delivers real value is what makes sense. Okay. Ultimately, that gives us competitive advantage. Now, connecting strategic objectives with portfolio priorities is something that we find many organizations are striving to do right now. There's a lot more dimensions to overall strategic portfolio management, but aligning these things properly and identifying these things and aligning them with strategies is one of the things that many organizations are striving to do effectively today. So, portfolio investments should clearly support and advance an organization's strategic objectives. If it's not, like I said, we have to question why we're doing it in the first place. There needs to be clear communication across teams, horizontally across an organization, and up and down from strategic leadership down through the executing departments and or teams that are working on these things. We need to get stakeholders involved because they have to have buy-in to what we're doing. We have to have their inputs about what's important and what is going to drive value for them. And also keep that ongoing communication and engagement, because as things change and they adapt, we need that feedback and feed forward continuously through the organization. And once again, we have to have more frequent and more flexible prioritization, and those mechanisms in our process need to allow for rapid response so that we can make changes and adjustments while we still have a time to make an impact. Now, measuring impacts is a key thing. We've been through a number of, let's just say, conferences on project and portfolio management and IT in general, and business and digital transformation in recent months. And tracking key performance indicators, we have to have the right ones. So if we have to have the ones that reflect the strategic objectives and make sure that whatever we're tracking and measuring is reflective of that, right? And benefits realization is a big thing right now. People want to understand, many organizations are really good at defining the potential benefits that we're going to get when we do a business case. But do we have the wherewithal, or do we actually follow through on assessing what the benefits that were actually realized, so that we can actually quantify, measure, and communicate what's been realized, as opposed to what it is we thought or we proposed we could do. And that requires continuous feedback loops, and also setting a standard about where we were at, so that we can make adjustments and corrections over time based upon what we were and we're not able to deliver as far as value. Now, the importance of this, I won't go through this in detail, but we have increasing complexity in business environments, so we have to make sure that the resources and the dollars we have are aligned with the right things, right, that are going to make the most impact. We have the greater need for financial and resource optimization, because we have to make sure that we're taking our finite pool of resources and dollars that we have and make sure we're making the bets on the right things and not squandering them when we could be investing in other things. And we need more data in a less distributed way, in a less fragmented way in an organization, so we can make good decisions based on complete information, so that they're totally informed decisions. And that gets complicated more by the adoption of all these other methodologies, agile, variations of that, waterfall, hybrids of those types of things, maybe more continuous delivery models, etc. How do we harness all that and get that under the data rationalized, so that we can make decisions and use that, but execute in the way we have to, depending on the types of work that we're doing? And ultimately, this is because there's emerging technologies and business models that we have to take advantage of, and our leadership wants to do. And if we can't morph ourselves and advance and modernize what we're doing, both from a process, application, technology-wise, etc., we may miss the boat and may lose any leadership gains that we might have in our markets. So overcoming these methodologies, I would say, they're all here. I mean, there's been, push by the purists, to say everything can be done with an agile transformation over to agile. But the reality is, the analysts are finding today that not all things are conducive to agile. And most organizations end up with some mix of methodologies. The things that are agile in software development and product development, maybe so, but construction and facilities work and those types of things, the waterfall approach is still the primary way that those things are done, and probably should be done. And then there's hybrids of those things, where things have mixes of different parts of the project, may be agile oriented, some may be waterfall. And then people have personal hand-picked cherry versions of what they do on this. But we have to accommodate this, because the people executing should be able to have the tools and the process and the approach that is conducive to the type of work that they're doing. Now, just to illustrate this, from a client of ours, this was just a partial map of the different tools used by the different disciplines and the different departments within an organization. And as you can see, there's a lot of data fragmentation because of all these tools that are being used. How do you get this all together into a portfolio context and use all that information to holistically make decisions, track what we're doing, and let alone adjust and adapt as we go? Very difficult to do. And these information silos breed costs and inefficiencies. So we end up with poor alignment and collaboration between these different functional areas with their different tools and different methods. No single source of the truth, unless we do a big manual mashup of data and then have to conform that into a report and set of dashboards that maybe have that mashup of data as its core, and then try to relate it in a way that's effective for leadership to make decisions on. And we end up with this fragmentation, almost invariably duplication of efforts. People, maybe working on the same things in different departments, having to update things in different tools, the same information multiple times, meaning the consistency is prone to errors. The difficulty to remain accurate and current across the board, because once we do the updates, by the time we get all that done across the board, the scenario and the landscape has changed. Even just chasing down team members to update all these different data points and all those typical things. And we also find that the resource management piece, the capacity planning that's so important, it's typically done then on its own separate spreadsheet somewhere. totally disconnected from what we're doing on the execution of the task and the deliverable elements. And so those things fall out of sync, and they maybe aren't even relevant to each other. So enabling that, we need to have dynamic resource allocation, right, during these disruptive periods. And one of the ways to do that is to be able to have tools at your disposal that allow you to do scenario planning, so that you can evaluate alternatives and anticipate future possibilities and say, should this happen, what would we do? Or now that this has happened, how should we respond in the most optimal way? And the other piece is rolling forecasts. You can't just build a plan for your resource plan for the year and use it as a static, dashboard of what it is that we said that we're going to do. We know more about the near term than we do about the longer term, maybe more detail in the next 30, 60, 90 days on our resource forecasts, and maybe a little more high level information outlying. And as we go month to month, as things become more near term, we do more rolling wave planning to detail that out more further. And an ideal thing called capacity buffers, and allowing enough capacity for contingencies and the unexpected, that's a luxury many of us don't have. But if for some way you can reserve some capacity for the things that we think that are going to come down the pike, it might be a good idea to do that, so that you don't over-constrain yourself with the things you have on your plate at this very moment, but have the flexibility to provide the things that, and let's just say redeploy people as needed because of changing conditions. And an agile approach to things, having self-sufficient, dedicated cross-functional teams helps, because it allows individual teams and parts of the organization working on their individual pieces to pivot even more quickly, because they're in control and have the resources they need to respond. Now, the combination of this rolling wave stuff is a combination of top-down and bottom-up planning. And so this top-down and bottom-up piece here is really, high-level capacity planning. Early on, this maybe even happen during the request and or business case process, where we're saying, hey, this is what we're going to need. These are early estimates. They may be high level. They may be on a percentage or an FTE basis. They may even be done on a generic resource basis. And it's the easiest way to maintain and start a resource plan, because it's not down to very granular level of detail. And some organizations keep their resource capacity planning at this level because that's what they can sustain. But some organizations really have the need to also augment this with bottom up, with based on task-based schedules and resource and task assignments with named individual resources. And that may happen later in the life cycle of a project when we start to execute. And you might compare those with an early top-down estimate to see if what we're really doing on the ground even came close to what our assumptions were early on as we were thinking about doing this. And things like OnePlan today give you the ability to do both of these things and do those comparisons. So we want to be able to have proactive resource shift as things change, because resources is an important dimension. We want to maintain our strategic momentum, meaning we don't want to get so overrun by operational crises that we forget or put on the back burner the strategic efforts that we have in place. It's so easy, many organizations kind of push those things to the side when those operational crises or priorities tend to happen. If we allocate the resources to make sure that they stay the course on the strategic initiatives, we'll get those things done, because those are so important to the future of where we're going as an organization and capitalizing on those new opportunities. Now, shifting from project to value, let's just say about this is that focusing solely on metrics can hide the true value a project delivers. If it's like whether or not we delivered on time, on budget, and at, with the right things that we agreed to, does that mean we really delivered value at the end of the day? Yes, we succeeded on a delivery perspective, but did it provide an outcome that helped the organization? Did it provide value and benefit? And I think the metrics need to support that these days. And it also should support the decision-making process as far as what we choose to do. Now, achieving elite status in your strategic portfolio management, let's just say the analysts are finding that you really need to have these three dimensions all working together. You need to have good portfolio alignment. You have to have ongoing portfolio flexibility, as we talked about, not just that annual operating plan, and value-driven decision-making. These three things working together really define effective strategic portfolio management. Now, I would say the optimistic take on this, that less than 20% of organizations are successful in achieving all three, is that we have great opportunity here. The opportunity that we have is the 80% have the ability to grow into these things better and actually adopt these things in their organization in a way that helps us add more value and help our PMOs become more value organizations. Now, OnePlan for strategic portfolio management excellence is designed to do all the things we just talked about. It's designed to help you with strategy, execution, and assets and technology. So the business leaders can build their strategic execution plans, the OKRs or the value streams that they've decided to work on. And then the folks that execute, the people that decide on what we will execute on, whether they be more traditional projects, maybe more professional services, maybe more product development, maybe more agile software development, maybe just more adaptive, mixed methodologies and mixed tools, whatever they might be. We can evaluate those things and approve them and execute on them based upon alignment with those strategies that the business leaders identified. And then ultimately for full strategic portfolio management, this is the one that tends to be a more mature aspect of this, is we have to factor in the assets and the elements, the business and enterprise architecture elements that need to be addressed in order for us to define or achieve success. If the things that we're transforming in an organization require enhanced business capabilities, which in turn have applications or software that need to be enhanced or modernized in order to give us that enhanced business capability, or in products that we use internally that need to be updated or modified, or even created in order to do these things, if we don't factor those developments in, they can actually undercut us, right, and sabotage our success overall, because they're things that have to be addressed in order to be successful. Now, OnePlan is a AI-enabled strategic portfolio and work management platform that does all the things we just talked about. It connects strategy to execution. It delivers the real-time visibility and insights. It optimizes resource capacity planning. It centralizes the financial management related to these things. And it also harnesses and unifies your tools and teams by defining, providing visibility across all of it, especially on the cross-functional efforts, but also supports hybrid work models that leverage maybe different tool sets. And that whole silo of tools and the inefficiencies, we bring those together and harness those into a common portfolio management practice. And so OnePlan gives you the ability or enables you to do this. So for an example here, you might have a portfolio level of capabilities that are defined by the bigger screen. You might have individual departments or teams that are using different tools and methodologies down at this lower level. And here I'm using as a subset of the tools that we do support, the Microsoft-oriented ones of Microsoft Project Professional, Azure DevOps, the non-Microsoft ones like Smartsheets. What Microsoft used to call Project for the Web is now called Microsoft Planner with premium plans. That's the future direction they're going. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment here. But the idea is these teams can continue to leverage the investment they've made in these tools and the thought process in the planning in these tools, and have that all fold in automatically into the context of an overall portfolio across the organization. This is true even for an enterprise portfolio in an EPMO scenario. So the end-to-end capabilities that are provided to you by OnePlan, include the following. On the demand side, we have the strategy pieces, developing the OKRs by our leadership, a full ideation portal that gives you the ability to have anyone in the organization submit ideas and requests in there that can be vetted and evaluated against the strategic objectives that we have, and then even factor in the different solution areas or business and enterprise architecture elements that we talked about in here, so that we can factor all that in, even in the demand part of what we're doing. Ultimately, we can leverage that information to arrive at a optimum portfolio for the organization to be working on at this point in time, and factor in different views that we'll show in a little bit. The capacity planning and making sure that we have the wherewithal resource-wise to deliver on what we're committing to, so that we don't set ourselves up for failure before we even start. Making sure it falls within the resource financial budgets, the dollars that we have in order to make those things happen. And then have a full what-if scenario modeling capability in here that allows us to evaluate alternatives anytime we want as change occurs and as different, let's just say, events happen that necessitate change. Now, on the execution side, OnePlan has the things we talked about for mixed methodologies. We have our own work planner that allows you to do more waterfall planning. We also have a work type that allows us to do more agile-oriented stuff, backlogs and sprints, etc. But we also have a mechanism that allows us to merge the two, such that we actually have hybrids that allow that part waterfall, part agile. And we don't require any other tools to do this, but you'll see all these icons you might recognize for different tools that are popular in the marketplace. And we have our own connector platform that allows us to leverage data from those tools, ongoing even, if you have different teams that want to continue to use those, and fold those into the work plans here so that they can be leveraged in a common portfolio management solution, hence negating all those silos that we have to overcome that I mentioned earlier on in the slides. And even the team members having one place to go. I talked about that duplication of effort and going to multiple tools. They can go to one place now to update the things that are on their plate, the tasks. They can assign them to people, and they can see everything and provide comments and status, etc. Any given point in time, and even report time on it because there's a built-in timesheet capability here as well. The payoff for many is really the analysis and the visibility you get. So the reporting, whether it be individual project status reports that are just a natural output and auto-created for you within the solution, still with the ability to put your narratives in there, the dashboards at whatever level you might want, at the strategy level, at the portfolio level, at the individual project level, whatever it might be, and then visualizing all the interrelations things have, and we'll show that in a little bit. Now, we wouldn't be in the modern age if we didn't have an AI assistant, and Sophia has been there from the very early days of AI being available in general. And Sophia is a purpose-built AI agent, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. But ultimately, all these capabilities are designed to help us on the front end to do the right work, select the right things to work on an optimal basis, and then give us the tools so that we can execute well and do the work right. Just to enhance that, one of the things about bringing all those things from a variety of parts of the organization into one place is that we can get a harness on good governance across it all. And if we govern this well across all the capabilities that you choose to leverage within OnePlan, we can also tailor the user experience depending on who you are in the organization. For example, an EPMO or a PMO might have a different way they might look at the world. But if I'm specifically product or R&D or IT, maybe my lens into this data should be different. Maybe I should be looking at it in a different structure. Maybe I should be looking at different metrics. And OnePlan gives you the ability to define these solution areas and have those variations so that the user experience by these different teams can vary as they need to, yet meet the overall needs of the organization or an EPMO, for example. So you can have solution areas that we've already built, or you can actually, through this platform of OnePlan, configure your own when you say build it, not customize it. These are things you can do yourself once you've been trained on how to do it. And once again, the integrations that we talked about. And it's not just work, project management tools we're talking about. It's things like service management tools and financial management tools and enterprise architecture tools, whatever it might be. And this is all built and delivered to you from the Microsoft platform, all the stuff that OnePlan provides. So it gives you a good way to meld this into the way you use things within the organization and dovetail really nicely with your current user experience. All I'll say here about the connector platform is it's ours. It's developed, it's owned, and maintained by OnePlan. You don't need a third-party middleware or connector platform that you might have out there. Though we do have partnerships with those and you can use them, you can do this all within OnePlan and our built-in productized connectors. And I'll say a little bit about the Microsoft piece. The reason that we're talking about changes in the Microsoft project and portfolio management is Microsoft announced that Project Online is going to be retired, end of life next September 2026, and that many folks are going to need a home at that point for what they're doing that are using Project Online. Given the fact that we're built in the Microsoft platform, we actually are delivered from the Microsoft platform. We are already connected with Project on the desktop, Planner, Planner Premium, as well as Project Online itself, let alone your use of Azure DevOps. We're an authorized Microsoft Teams application, etc. The idea here is that we have a ready-made home for those Project Online people. Because Microsoft's going more in the direction of the collaborative work management space. The tools that they're using, the lighter weight former Project for the Web now, Planner with premium plans, Planner, Power Apps. It's not going to give full feature parity with what Project Online had. But we're already connected with Project Online. We've already extended Project Online with customers, meaning that we have a home that's already integrated with Project Online, such that you have a natural progression to move your project and portfolio and resource data to OnePlan with minimal disruption, as opposed to going to some other non-Microsoft platform. So just be aware that that's something that we'd love to engage with you on, because it's a hot topic of conversation for many organizations today. The other piece about this, not only do we integrate the data itself between Microsoft tools and other tools, we have what we call a fused UI strategy. And this fused UI strategy allows us to consume the OnePlan capabilities. For example, if you're using Power Apps, or if you've tried the Microsoft Planner with Power Apps and found it not having all the capabilities that you're looking for, the OnePlan capabilities can be added very easily within that Power App. We actually developed the Planner or Planner Premium Accelerator for Microsoft that's actually available up in GitHub today or up in AppSource. And we designed OnePlan to be able to be incrementally added to that seamlessly, so you can add those advanced capabilities that you might find missing when you start using just Planner as opposed to Microsoft Project on the desktop. We are also an authorized Microsoft Teams application, so you can actually leverage us right within Microsoft Teams itself. We also have a connector and extensions for Azure DevOps. So those of you that are looking for portfolio management capabilities within Azure DevOps, because it really doesn't have much there, if any, you can actually leverage the OnePlan capabilities without ever leaving Azure DevOps. The whole idea that every time you switch applications or do context switching, that you lose productivity. Never leave the tool that you're primarily working in, but have those more advanced portfolio management capabilities available to you in the environment that you're currently working in, like Azure DevOps. The same thing holds true in Dynamics. In SharePoint, we do the same thing. And even for some non-Microsoft ones like Jira, for the Jira folks, we do that as well. So once again, another thing that makes us a good logical next home for you. And we are one of the recommended solutions from Microsoft, let alone their own Planner and Power Apps. OnePlan as a complete solution and not a set of components or widgets. It's really a complete solution that can be added into this mix. We talked about Sophia. The one thing I'll add about the AI component of OnePlan is that it is built in the Microsoft cloud. It leverages Azure OpenAI, which has more security and compliance than OpenAI does on the general internet, like you do with ChatGPT. Also, it's been trained, or she's been trained, I should say, on everything SPM, PPM, and OnePlan oriented, such that when she gives responses to your prompts or your inquiries, it factors that in. But the cool part is, it also then leverages the OnePlan data that you present on the screen as part of its response, but it doesn't learn from that data. It protects it and just leverages it in context transactionally, and then moves on to the next thing that you want to query about. Or prompt about. So the idea here is the combination of that is very cool. And we're working on things right now to seamlessly integrate this with your use of Copilot within Microsoft, so that it's a seamless experience to give you a more robust set of capabilities and analysis. And I would just say in the lower right, Sophia is always present no matter what part of the tool you're in. And you can access and ask prompts anytime. And the cool part with this is Sophia is provided to you at no additional charge. It's not a premium add-on or anything like that. It's part of the core capabilities of OnePlan when you subscribe. So how is AI impacting this? Well, everybody wants to know today, what are the realistic or the real things that we can do today? And we have capabilities in Sophia today that help us with the strategic planning, with portfolio optimization, work management and creation of schedules and projects and risk logs and all kinds of things, overall risk assessment, optimizing and suggesting resource allocations, even on the dollars, the investment forecasting, etc. And this is just a beginning. We're adding stuff to Sophia all the time. And I would say this, even at the execution level, not even talking about portfolio, analysts have done many studies, and this is just meant to be illustrative only. But the idea is that if you think about all the tasks in here, creating schedules and meeting management, status reporting, all that stuff, if they added up the weekly time per project of 11 hours and 30 minutes, the projection is that with AI assistance in all these areas, you can reduce that by about just under 9 hours. What does that do? it frees us up to do more high value and delivering that value that we talked about and focusing on value and delivery as opposed to the more administrative side of things, and maybe even the manual efforts that has to do to get the analysis that we're looking for as well. So if we look at Gen AI impacts on strategic portfolio leaders, there's a lot. Some of them have to do with us skilling up. Some of them have to do on number 3 with creating partnerships to get the data that they want. And some of it has to do with, dramatic changes in our roles and responsibilities. But one of the primary ones immediately that OnePlan can help us with is we're going to get flooded in our organizations with requests for portfolio demand that's related to Gen AI and pipelines of things and competing investment ideas. OnePlan will definitely help us and help prioritize and select the right things and work on those things and stage them appropriately. So ultimately, the real message here is portfolio management leaders don't need to take unnecessary risks or, just go crazy with the Gen AI investments. But doing nothing now is risky. We need to address it, and we need to make sure we don't miss opportunities or fall behind. Instead, create a practical Gen AI adoption plan, and OnePlan can help you that in our portfolio management and even our project and initiative execution tools that are in here. So with that, I thought I would show us just some capabilities at a high level within OnePlan that you might want to look at. Let me start at the strategic level. So basically, since we're talking about strategic alignment, the ability in OnePlan to be able to define your objectives and your key results and define those in a way and time phasing them any way you like across the organization is something that is done very easily within OnePlan. You can establish your objectives and your key results, and you can even align and associate the different initiatives that are associated with those as you go through, right? And I would just say this, as we go in and look at the details around this, we have templates for these things. But basically, if we go and look at the different metrics that we can establish, the categorizations, the timelines, what kind of unit of measures for the value we're going to use, track how we're doing on those, descriptive things that we can even use Sophia or AI to help us generate those descriptions if we like, associate them with different projects and plans, etc. We can do all that from one individual place. And you can do that from all different levels of the organization. So for example, if I go into the update all network switches and look at what we're doing there, I can also look at how it's aligned with things in there across the organization, whether it be precedence dependencies or even looking at how this key result, what strategy or objective it aligns with, how many ideas or projects it aligns with, so we understand what things might be dependent or might have impact on our success. Even things like products and applications that are required, right, that were there. And tracking the status, like this one looks to be at risk on concept development. What is the data behind that? And be able to look at any given point in time at the details around that to factor in it, to keep our eye on the ball and make sure that we have these things going in a fashion that makes sense, okay? The key is that this is fundamental, establishing strategies across all parts of the organization, measuring those, but then aligning them with the right things that we want to work on, okay? On the idea side of things, we probably want to be able to work with ideas or requests. And this can be set up as a request portal that people don't have to be licensed individually for OnePlan. They can come in here and submit their ideas and their requests and give them the narratives that they're looking for, and basically create the forms with drag and drop form builder capabilities. Now we have templates to get you started, but however you'd like to modify this, the life cycle or decision-making flow that's required and workflows associated with those, the narratives, the categorization, the prioritization methods that are being used, whether they be more business driver oriented, coming up with a prioritization score, maybe more agile approaches like weighted shortest job first, and what other types of things that might be already in flight that we might want to align to on these types of things is very important, right? If we look at this, right, and I go back to this, you can see there's voting capabilities on here, as well as scoring on those types of things, right? And if I go into something like an idea prioritization view on this and look at how we've prioritized this and what the budget and the benefits and the voting ascertains in there, we can do all kinds of things in here that we'd like to do to prioritize this, and even use Sophia to help us assess the whole group of things that we have in here. And then ultimately, you can take these ideas and these requests and you can actually reorganize or promote them to projects or epics or other things you might want there to carry forward in a continuum without having to recreate these things in a project management execution system as you go through. Okay. Now, if this goes through to a portfolio, the real power here is the fact that you can manage, even as an EPMO, one or more portfolios. And we have the concept in here of what we call plan types, and we can establish a plan type hierarchy. We have templates for what people do commonly, but you have the way you look at things in your organization. And for example, in this case, a plan type hierarchy might be one or more portfolios, then the programs within those portfolios, and maybe even the projects, epics, or engagements that are within those programs. And then maybe even breaking the agile efforts down to a feature level if you want that at the portfolio level for doing things like program increment planning, right? The key is that you can establish that hierarchy, or what I'd call a primary plan type hierarchy, in any way that makes sense for your organization through simple configuration. And as we go through this, I can expand this and I can see this portfolio has a program within it, and this program now has projects and epics within it. And those are all listed here. Now, you may notice that there's connector icons over to the side here that's telling me that there's other tools that we're connected with. OnePlan doesn't require any of these tools to do the things that we just talked about through the slide presentation. But the reality is sometimes a barrier to getting portfolio management is that people are already committed to these tools and you're not going to be able to pull them out of their hands very easily. So why not adopt, adapt, and let them continue to use those tools and have that data feed continuously into OnePlan? For example, I can see I'm connected to Azure DevOps for execution here. I'm connected to Project Professional on the desktop here. I'm connected to Planner Premium from Microsoft. I'm connected to Jira on this one. I'm connected to Smartsheet here. You have the option to be able to do that anytime you like. And we'll go into a little bit more of that in a second. But the ultimate thing here is I'm looking at this by a primary plan type hierarchy here. But I have a lot of flexibility in the way I'd look at this. For example, I can go to a different view that has different columns and different perspectives. And I can go to, say, an overall summary that's just a list of all the projects and epics and things that are in here. And instead of looking at it by the primary plan type hierarchy, I can just come in here and say, all right, from a column perspective, let me not do columns. Let me group this. Let me group it by now business unit, right? And now I've got this portfolio grouped and summarized by the different business units, and it's calculating the summaries and all that. And maybe I want to do a multi-level grouping, right? Maybe I might want to say, okay, then within those business units, what are the types of projects that I have that are being worked, right? Now within business unit finance, I've got an innovation type. In operations, I've got compliance, innovation, and process improvement types. Or whatever data and metadata you want to capture around this, you can add as many different fields that you want in here and use them as data points in your reports and in your dashboards, and even just these views within OnePlan. So the cool part is you can look at your data any way you choose at any given point in time. And that includes board views for your portfolio. So we can look at these things from a board perspective and have a number of different board views with different columns, etc. In this particular case, I've got it by the state of the project. I've got color coding at the head of the card that is indicating the overall status, like what's red, off track versus at risk, etc. But at any given point in time, in any view, I can add swim lanes, right? So for example, in the board, I might want to add a swim lane for, I'll use business unit again, right? And so the idea now I can get and say, okay, what are we doing for the capital planning group? What are we doing for the finance group, et cetera? What stage are these things in? And if I see anything that's, at risk, I can always drill in at any given point in time and go right to this project itself, or even pop up a quick view of the details around this to find out why we might be red. What areas of the project are we red on? And what should I be aware of at any given point in time? And the same thing holds true with our roadmap views. Our roadmap views give you the ability to look at things here at the portfolio level. So this is our different portfolios and how they're doing, or even down to the individual, more detailed project-oriented views. So if I go into the project portfolio roadmap, this one's got swim lanes by the different portfolios that they're part of, right? Color-coded by the status, red, yellow, green. But I have flexible views. I can create as many as I want, my own personal views, et cetera, roadmaps. And I might change the color code. What if I'm interested in just solely the financial status, right? Financial health. Now I can see less red, yellow, green, and I can see I just got a couple of yellow because they're in financial risk, right? Within those, and look at those things in a variety of different ways. So just want to touch upon at a high level the flexibility of the way we can look at our project data. And even from a roadmap view, so many people are using static roadmaps today that aren't really tied to any particular data or whatever it might be. You could actually go in here and you can drill into any specific project just by going to there and getting to any aspect of this project at any given point in time. Okay. I would say this as we drill into some of our projects, you can get into them from almost anywhere within the solution. And as we go in here and we look at individual projects, I would just say you can define the details that you would track, a details page that is a summary of everything in the project, all in one place. We have standard templates, but you can add sections and fields of data just anytime very easily, right, in order to make those things happen. The financial tracking, detailed time phase financial tracking. These are things that, to be quite frank, was hard to get from Project Online if you're looking to move off of that. It's also things as you move into the more of the Power Apps and the planner stuff, you're not going to get this level of time phase data, tracking CapEx and OpEx and all those types of things. And one reason why you might want to move to OnePlan as a home for that. The same thing is with dynamic interactive resource planning. Project Online, yes, within the schedules in Microsoft Project Professional themselves, you can do resource planning, but at the portfolio level, to be able to ultimately be flexible and update those things right here in that fashion, both generic resources, named individuals, and even finding things like resources that may be candidates that can replace and be a candidate to be the actual resource on a project like this and what availability they might have. Something that gives you interactive ability to optimize and rationalize your resource allocations right here. Once again, things that you did in Microsoft Project Online, but definitely not in an interactive way like this. So it'd be a step up and also giving you capabilities that you had before in the overall resource capacity planning. And then the work plans. I would say this is one of those key things that you can choose to use the OnePlan work plan, show them with or without the Gantt chart representations in here, etc. And you can also build these work plans or bring them in from a variety of different tools. You can enable whichever connectors you like within our tool set. So the key there is it can be made here, it can be made from within templates that are within the solution here itself, right? But an important part here is that concept I had of plan types that we had at the portfolio level for the portfolios and the programs and the projects, epics, or whatever. We have a concept of work types in here. And for example, this schedule work type is more conducive to both waterfall and hybrid plans. We have a backlog work type that you can use that might be more conducive to putting more agile plans in place and more sprint-based planning. And you have, out of the box, you get risks and issues and changes and all those types of things. And you can use those as you see fit, and you can easily configure to add more if you want to add things like lessons learned or assumptions, etc. Things like that. And the key is that's all available to us right here within OnePlan. And I said, status reporting, that should be a natural output of the process. To create status reports with the objective data, with places for your more verbose narrative that you might want to have in here, you can put those in place. And you could even actually leverage Sophia to basically help write some narrative for you in here by giving it some context and have it write some narrative as a starting point for you. So those are types of things that save time and ability. And as you create different status reports, we keep a history of the different status report periods such that you can do trending analysis, all those types of things, and actually put them out to common formats like PDF and Word. So those are the types of areas at a high level that we keep within the project itself. And I would say this, I'd probably show this just because the visualizer that I showed at the strategic level, it's just as viable from a more project-centric view. So as I'm looking at this data warehouse migration project, I can see that it does have a successor, but the runway, it's really just aligned with one key result aligned to one strategy, but it has certain associations, albeit dependencies, on products and or applications to make this project successful. So once again, it's viable with whatever part of the product that we're in, okay? Real quickly, I was going to touch on the solution areas when I said the user experience should be different. So for a professional services arm of our organization, maybe we want to look at the world by accounts and look at the engagements that we have within these accounts and projects that we have. If we're doing product development, maybe we want to look at these things by product lines and the different products within those product lines and potentially the epics and things that are within that. And as we drill in, you'll probably notice that the actual details for might be different. Like this one has a product vision canvas in here and other elements about the product lifecycle and total cost of ownership that we might want to track with the financials around that. And the same thing would hold true if we were looking at the application development, right? That maybe we have business capabilities in here that have applications that support that business capability, as well as the efforts and the initiatives that are going on to support and modernize and upkeep this application. And once again, having its own forms and its own capabilities within that, all within the same portfolio management solution. Now, ultimately, that resource planning I showed you should all roll up to a global resource view. And that view here might be all the individual named and individual resources or the teams. We can even plan at a team level and look at it in terms of the overall hours. You know, at a global level, I find it helpful to look at it in terms of FTEs and say, listen, how many FTEs do we got versus how many people do we actually have to apply it against this? And are we really fitting within that, right? Or maybe even to view and group these by different perspectives. Maybe I want to see how we're doing by role. And if I look at role by FTEs, I can see, for example, on the developer side, coming in May, I have 5 developers and I've got a plan that requires more than 8 in that month. So it's looking at that based upon the roll up from all the projects. I have named individuals, I have generics. For example, I've got upcoming projects that I haven't put a name to the developer. Who's actually going to do it? So that whole optimization and candidate list that I talked about, I could come in here and say, let me find a candidate, right, that has the availability in this time frame right here, and basically replace that generic with a named individual. Or I can replace an overloaded individual with a more available resource through all this, and dynamically be able to fit this in. Now, it's my assertion that if you have visibility like this all the time, you would probably unlikely get to this level of overallocation. Now, from a demo perspective, it shows a nice picture, but having constant visibility into this precludes us from making bad decisions at the outset, hopefully, right? And then I guess the last piece in here is the what if analysis. We talked about that, and just to show you that it's here, you can actually do what if analysis by different parts of the organization, by different types of projects or initiatives, and basically evaluate different scenarios. You know, could I do all these potential proposed and active projects together? You know, what would it take? Do I have the resources in here? Maybe not. Do I have the dollars to do all these things? Maybe not. But if I look at different scenarios, I could go look at this and say, all right, what if I only had $6 million? Can I do and look at the financials around here and do selection and deselection of what I will do and what I won't do in here to get down under $6 million? What can I do to fit within that? Or, you know, is that $6 million scenario doable from a resource perspective? It looks like I have much less contention for resources in this scenario as well. As I go through, as I'm a little bit running out of time, I can analyze and compare those scenarios and see, you know, is it worth spending $2 more million to get another $7 million worth of benefit? I might want to do that. Do I have the resources and the financials to do that? Have I overlooked any successors out of the selected projects in the scenario? Are there predecessors or successors that I didn't select that maybe I should reconsider? And as I do that, maybe I should be looking at the runway and saying, oh, look, I have a vendor management one here that isn't aligned with any of our strategies. I have an agile team project here that isn't aligned with any strategy. Maybe I should take those unselected things I'm dependent on and replace these on here because they don't seem to have an alignment within my organization. So ultimately, there's other things to analyze these scenarios in OnePlan, but I think I'll leave it at that given the time we have today. So with that, I'm going to summarize the next steps. And I think from a PMO perspective, I think the key takeaways is we really need to transform to be more strategic and do more strategic portfolio management to be effective in the future. We have to promote more agility in there by reassessing more and doing what-if analysis and be able to meet changing market and dynamic needs. And we need to focus on value delivery. Are we delivering value with the projects and initiatives that we're doing, not just delivering for the sake of delivering? And are they aligned with organizational goals and drives? And I think what I wanted to show today is that OnePlan provides a complete set of SPM capabilities to enable this, and would love to give the opportunity to do a more deeper dive with you guys and as you move forward. And we are a strategic Microsoft partner, so given that, we are somebody that's deployed a ton of Project Online and Project Server over the years. We are a trusted partner, understanding the challenges and what's there and what's not there. We're also obviously very versed in OnePlan. So moving forward, you can trust that we have a good sense of how to get you from point A to point B. We were named 5 times either Microsoft's Global PPM Partner of the Year or its finalist. So we did that for 5 straight years, and we're recognized for these SPM and PPM capabilities by Gartner, Forrester, and the Wave, Infotech Research, and Software Reviews. And we have a secure platform that's delivered from the Microsoft Cloud and all its security and compliance, but we also have our own Psych 2 and ISO certifications. I would say this, we provide more than software. We have resources that can help make you successful, including advisory services. And some of those might be a business strategy workshop on how to get to point A to point B from where you're at to where you want to be. And this includes a migration workshop on what it would take to get you from Project Online to OnePlan as a new home before it goes end of life next September, okay? We do webinars like this all the time. So we have a rich set of on-demand webinars that have been pre-recorded from the past that you can get to. Just go to oneplan.ai/webinars, or you can go to free trials and go to oneplan.ai/solutions. And I would choose either our platform demo or our strategic portfolio management template for the full function experience that you're looking for. And these templates can also be, or these trials can also be accessed from Microsoft AppSource, being the Microsoft partner that we are. So a free workshop, whether it be a business strategy workshop for just deploying OnePlan, or even if it's a migration workshop for how to get from Project Online to us and how easy that would be, the free trial and support, or reach out to us for a personalized one-on-one demo. We're happy to engage with you. You can reach out at contact@oneplan.ai, and we'll assign you to somebody that would actually be primary for you and working with you in your region or your vertical market. Or you can just research more of us at our website at oneplan.ai. Okay. Feel free to reach out to me directly if I can answer any questions for you. But I would can't emphasize enough that we would love to engage with you on a no obligation, free basis to help have that discussion with you of how you get from where you're at in your current state to how do you get into the capabilities we talked about within OnePlan. And that's being whether or not you're coming from spreadsheets, from different tool sets, you want to integrate additional tools that you're looking at today. But the priority of the day for many folks is, what do we do now that Project Online is going away and we have a deadline? We can help you get there in an efficient way with the least risk and disruption that you might have from any other alternative you might be looking at. So with that, I hope you found value in what you heard today. Thank you and have a great day.